Welcome to today's deep dive, Trump's second term, how U.S. policy is reshaping the global order. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking one of the most dramatic shifts in global politics since the end of the Cold War. Donald Trump's return to the White House in 2025 has unleashed an unfiltered America First agenda that's challenging decades of U.S.-led multilateralism, alliances, and the so-called rules-based international order. From military operations in Venezuela to threats against Iran, demands on Greenland, and pressure on NATO allies, Trump's approach is transactional, unilateral, and focused on spheres of influence rather than global leadership. Critics call it a return to 19th-century imperialism. Supporters see it as pragmatic realism. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll break down the key actions, the new national security strategy, and what this means for the world in 2026. Let's get into it. The core philosophy: America First 2.0. Trump's second term marks a clear break from the post-1945 liberal order that the U.S. helped build. Alliances like NATO, institutions like the UN, and commitments to democracy promotion and human rights. The 2025 National Security Strategy, released late last year, puts it bluntly: the U.S. rejects global domination in favor of regional balances of power. It mocks the so-called rules-based international order and prioritizes the Western Hemisphere above all else. Key pillars include reasserting dominance in the Americas via what Trump calls the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, or the Monroe Doctrine. This means keeping foreign powers, China, Russia, Iran, out of America's backyard. Pressuring allies to pay more. Think NATO at 5% GDP defense spending, or face reduced U.S. commitment. Transactional deals over ideology, trade concessions from China, bailouts for friendly leaders in Argentina, even freeing a former Honduran president convicted of drug trafficking. Withdrawal from multilateral bodies, 66 organizations dumped in early 2026, including climate pacts and human rights councils. This isn't isolationism, it's selective engagement. The U.S. is using its unmatched military and economic leverage for short-term wins, often unilaterally. Flashpoint: the Western Hemisphere shakeup. The boldest move so far? Operation Absolute Resolve in early January 2026. U.S. Special Forces raided Caracas, captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and flew them to New York to face narco-terrorism charges. Framed as a blow against drug cartels and a grab for Venezuela's oil reserves, it was the most significant U.S. military action in the hemisphere in decades. No broad coalition, just unilateral force. This ties directly to the Monroe Doctrine: restore U.S. preeminence, deny adversaries footholds, and secure resources. Follow-up demands include kicking out Chinese, Russian, Cuban, and Iranian advisors, reforming oil industries, and releasing political prisoners. Similar vibes with Greenland. Trump demanded Denmark hand it over for strategic Arctic control, threatening force if needed. Panama Canal control reaffirmed, and threats to retake it floated earlier. The message: the Western Hemisphere is America's sphere again. This has rattled Latin America, emboldened some leaders, and raised fears of neo-imperialism. Middle East: strikes, threats, and deals. Trump's not shying from force elsewhere. In June 2025, Operation Midnight Hammer bombed Iranian nuclear sites, claiming to have obliterated the program. Fast forward to 2026, massive protests in Iran over economic collapse led to regime crackdowns. Trump threatened new leadership and deployed a huge naval armada, bigger than the Venezuelan one, warning of strikes far worse if no deal. Demands: zero uranium enrichment, missile limits, end proxy support. Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. Iran refuses talks under threat, but the pressure is intense. Elsewhere, fragile Gaza ceasefire midwifed by Trump, Yemen strikes on Houthis, and continued ISIS operations in Syria. The approach? Use overwhelming force for quick wins, avoid forever wars, and prioritize Israel and energy security. Europe, Russia, Ukraine, burden sharing and deals. Europe is under siege. Trump insulted leaders at Davos, demanded higher defense spending, and suggested allies pay for U.S. protection. The NSS obsesses over Europe's civilizational self-confidence while handing defense responsibility back to them. On Ukraine-Russia, Trump paused energy strikes on Kiev at his request to Putin, creating a brief window. Talks in Abu Dhabi narrowed issues to territorial claims, Donetsk, key gap. Zelensky invited Putin to Kiev, more rounds loom. Trump's plan leans towards concessions, possible Crimea recognition, no NATO to Ukraine, to end the war fast. This empowers Putin, but tests Europe's resolve. Asia and broader risks. China gets transactional wins, trade deals suspending tariffs, rare earth access. But Trump deters confrontation through strength, no major power competition rhetoric, just rebalancing. Indo-Pacific alliances strengthened, but with U.S. leverage emphasized. Risks: eroding trust in U.S. alliances could spark nuclear cascades or embolden revisionists. Doomsday clock vibes, instability from unilateralism. Conclusion: Trump's second term is reshaping the world order, from multilateral liberalism to hard power spheres of influence. Wins for America? Short-term leverage, reduced burdens. Costs? Fractured alliances, instability, accusations of rogue behavior. Is this sustainable, or the start of deeper disorder? 2026 will tell. Thanks for listening or watching. Drop your thoughts. What's the biggest shift? Subscribe for more global breakdowns. Until next time, stay informed.